Hey guys, how's it going? So, I've been getting some interest in these designs I've been working on lately, and I wanted to do a quick tutorial for you so you could learn how to do this type of work in Illustrator. It's pretty simple. You're just following some pretty strict steps at the beginning, and then kind of branching off from there and making it your own. And then once you've mastered that, you can kind of go back to the previous steps and start really customizing the tutorial to whatever it is you want to do. So we're going to focus on three things. We're going to focus on making a design like this. We're going to focus on blending tools. And the last thing is replacing the color of your artwork once your design's completed. Okay, so let's start. So you're going to go File, New. Make a new document, name it whatever you want, and size doesn't matter. I'm going to place a rectangle here so you guys can see better what I'm working. Alright. And apologies for all the weird scrolling that's going to happen. My mouse isn't working how I'd like it. Alright, cool. So let's go over to our shapes and pick the ellipse tool. We're going to change this to 86 and 86. And then let's align this to the center of the artboard. So we'll click here, align to artboard, horizontal, and vertical. And then on our shape, let's make sure that the fill is set to none. Great. So now we'll go back to our shapes, click star tool. Let's set the radius 1 to 120 and radius 2 to 100. But really the more important part is the points. Let's set that to 10. Cool. So we're going to center that with a circle. You can double check by clicking your horizontal align center and vertical align center. And then we'll grab this shape. We'll do Command C or Control C on PC, and then Shift Command Z to paste in place. And then we're going to make that one a little bigger. Cool. So now that we have these shapes, let's grab each point. Just these points. And these center ones, the points on this center star as well. Okay. Now we'll go over here and we'll plug this. This is an anchor point smooth tool. It's just automatic. So now you have this flower. We're going to zoom in on, oh, not that far. So we're going to press Shift C, which is our anchor point tool, and we're just going to smooth these out. You don't have to be precise on this, just so they're smooth. And then for some of you who've used Illustrator before, you might ask, why aren't you clicking these points and using the new CS6 or the new CC option where you can round it like this? Reason is it creates twice as many anchor points. Went from 2 to 4, so right now for this tutorial we're just going to do it by hand. You'll see why when we get a couple steps in. All right. So just finish this up. Oop. All right, cool. And we don't need to do that with the center one. Okay, so let's start applying gradients to these shapes. So we'll go over here to the gradient. Oop. Let's make sure we're applying the gradient to our stroke. So we'll click the stroke and then the gradient. Let's set the type to radial. Now I'm going to change these colors to the whatever color gradient you want, really. I'm going to do a blue to a purple. maybe a darker, let's say a dark blue. Yeah, you can set these to however you want. And the later part of this tutorial we'll talk about changing these colors, so don't be too concerned about this part. So I'm going to do maybe like let's do like a green to a darker green. Cool. And then the center one, this one's a little different. We're going to make this white. I mean, you don't have to, but for this step, it's fine. Set white and then a blue. And then we're going to bring this close so it looks a little something like this. Oops. Okay, cool. So now we have our gradient set to the strokes of these shapes. So we're going to select all these and go to Option, Blend, Blend Options. We're going to pick Smooth Specified Steps and change the spacing to 200. And then we're going to go back to Blend, Object, Blend, Make. So this is going to take just a second. On some computers this might take longer than others, this step, and the next two steps is going to be way longer than this. So what we have here is our three shapes: this outside, middle, and circle center. And what's happening here is the blending option has taken the colors from each one of these shapes and blended them together, kind of transitioning from one to the other. So before we continue, let's talk about exactly what is happening here so you can have an idea. And this will help you further when you start customizing it, so you see the interactions that are happening with these shapes. So I'm just going to make these quick shapes. You don't have to do this. This is more just so you have an idea of what's going on. Actually, let's do this. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we have our two shapes, and they're the same size and two different colors. So we're going to pick. Now, how we were doing it, we're doing Option, Blend, Blend Options. There's also a tool for this, the Blend tool, which is this one. It's a square becoming a circle. So if we double click that, we'll change our steps to, let's say 10. And we're going to click this one and this one. So as you can see, actually, let's pick a different color just so it's really obvious. And set the steps to 5. Huh. Wait a minute. Why is steps? Oh, okay. It was going on to distance, not steps. Sorry about that. Okay. So we have our two shapes, and as you can see, what's happening is we're picking the amount of shapes that are in the middle from the orange to the blue rectangles, and it's filling in that gap. So if I change this shape, since they're both connected, they're linked together, if I move this, it'll always follow it. You can create some pretty interesting designs this way. It's a super powerful tool. If I make this smaller, it'll compensate for the rest of the squares, and you'll see that it naturally will morph its way, trying to go from one shape to the next. Same if I change the shape, it'll do the same. So that's what's happening here with our shape over here. Except instead of two shapes, this is three shapes. It's the same exact thing, except 2 becomes 3, and there's 200 steps in between each one of these shapes instead of that one was 10. Okay, cool. So now that we kind of have an idea of how that's working, let's move on to our next step. So we'll go to Effect, Distort and Transform, Pucker and Bloat. So let's change this percent to 60. Press OK. So this one's going to take a little longer than the last one, depending on how fast your computer is. Okay, so now we have something like this. So all this is doing is it's affecting your anchor points, but it's more of an effect. This can be taken off. It's not permanent yet unless we expand the design, but we're not going to do that yet. Okay, so now we have this, and we're going to go back to our Effect, Distort and Transform, and pick Zigzag. Let's set the size to 15, the ridges per segment to 7, points to smooth, and press OK. This will be the longest of them. The reason why it takes so long is it's rendering each line from one shape to another one using the blending tool. So it's quite an intense process for Illustrator to handle. Probably the longest I've ever seen for any task, besides maybe some of the 3D options. But yeah, okay, cool. So this is what we're left with, which is really neat. So as you can see, when you add these distort and transform effects, it starts to really create something sweet. So I didn't come up with this. This was not, I wasn't just messing around in Illustrator one day and then this happened. There's an artist named Maria Gerland who is, she does a lot of this type of work. I guess we can, yeah, so she does like a ton of this stuff. You know, so here's a good example, right? So but it kind of shows you where you could go with this type of work. So this is, if this was her tutorial, she would end here, you know. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know exactly how she does that other stuff, but it's the same blending option technique. So in order to get it to something like this or this, let's push it one step further, and this is kind of where I've been messing around. So if we pick our direct selection tool or press A, and then just click and drag and select this anchor point, this anchor point, this anchor point, and we'll just drag it up. And this will take a second to render. Maybe more than a second. It's just because of all those steps, but we're about to change that in a second. All right, cool. So, you know, as you can see, I just moved 3 points up, like barely any, and we have a completely new design, right? So that'll show you like how crazy, how versatile this technique really is. So let's take this design and let's give it, you know, this type of approach with these lines. So we have our design selected. We'll go to Blend Tool, and then these steps, let's change this to 10. No, let's change it to 15. Press OK. All right, so this is going to be a lot faster now because, you know, there's not as many steps between shapes. But so yeah, now we have a design that kind of looks like this, which you can see where this is heading, right? So then you just start messing around with your points, whatever you want to do. It's just playing around at this point, right? You'll notice some stuff looks cooler than others. Oh shit. Okay, there you go. See, and everything's a happy accident. You know, you just got to play around and see what looks cool to you. It's a ton of fun. All right, cool. So we have like a design that looks pretty cool. Actually, let me do one more move. No, it's fine. Okay, so we have our design, and let's see what this looks like with thinner stroke. So we'll select all of it, go to our strokes here on the right toolbar, and then the weight, let's do 0.3. All right, cool. Now we're really talking. So this is more aligned with the stuff I've been trying to figure out, playing with lately. Is these thin strokes are really cool, and they create some awesome like 3D type, I don't know, shit. So now that we have our design, let me just zoom out. This is the scrolling part I was talking about. All right, let's grab it and go to edit colors, recolor artwork. Okay, cool. So what this does is it shows you the current colors you're using in your gradient, as well as it provides color groups. But what we're going to be doing is changing these colors to new colors. This is helpful in not only this, but anything you work on in Illustrator to quickly change colors in your design without having to go through the strokes or the color palette or any of that, or selecting each one. Yeah, you get it. So let's change this, instead of like a blue green, let's make it like a yellow orange. Maybe like a yellow orange green. So let's get some crazy colors going. Yeah, and you can see it already starting to change. So this dark green will make that maybe like this bright orange. Cool. And then you can see what colors you're changing. A lot of these ones in the center are kind of hard to tell. But the more points you use originally, when we were working on the stars and shapes, the more points you use there, the more intricate your design will be. If you just use like squares and squares, then you'll have something not as intricate, but definitely still cool designs. So let's change this to like a burnt orange. Cool. And then this blue, let's make this just like a bright yellow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then I'm kind of digging like this purple on the edge. But I'm gonna fix this. This is like a little too bright. Make it a little more orangey. Yeah, that's cool. And then we'll leave that white because I think it's kind of doing some cool stuff. Cool. So press OK. Yeah, so now you have your design, and you can keep messing with it. Oh man, there's like so many possibilities here. Like, look at that. I don't know, it's crazy. So yeah, that's it. Just you guys play with it and show me what you guys have done, because honestly, like, every time I do this, it looks different. I've been doing these now for like a couple days, and I haven't done one that looks the same. There's always cool little nuances you can mess with. So yeah, let me know what you guys make. Cool. Thanks.